I'm sorry to say, but most tool companies out there, when they talk about American made, they put a big fat asterisk on the end of it because there's this caveat and all this kind of weasel lawyer words that come into it. And some of them, quite frankly, in my opinion, just flat out lie. Talking about a certain tool truck brand there. But the point is this American made is we have an idea of forges and fire and men sweating and building, real tools. Well, there is one 169-year-old company out there that's still trying to do that. They're fighting the good fight. They're having a hard time, but they're making a multi-million dollar bet down there in Mansfield, Texas. And they asked me to come down and take a look at it. And I'm, of course, talking about Klein Tools. Now, if you haven't heard about Klein, now I know a lot of you have, and a lot of you are going to be like, oh, I know Klein. And that's great. And you're going to want to stick around and hear the rest of this because it's still important. But a lot of you have only heard about it or seen it. That Klein's there. Some of you don't even know about it, and you should. They have more SKUs, that's individual items, than any other American manufacturer out there. Now, I'm not saying they sell more tools, but they sell more different types of tools. There can be a question about who sells the most tools. But that said, nobody sells more different tools that are made in the USA than Klein. And they have been bringing content creators like me down to Texas to show off their digs down there. And they're something. I went down there in this spring. I actually got to meet 3 other content creators. One of them here from Montana. We'll talk about them also. And yes, we are full disclosure on this channel. They paid for my travel. They put me up at a hotel. They bought me steak dinners. They sent me a bunch of tools, whole 9 yards, the Klein mod box, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about I'll give you the whole list of everything because we're not trying to hide anything. We're still going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And some of it is, a little ugly. Some of it's not great. And I'm sorry if I'm going to hurt some feelings, but I think you all need to know the truth. Honestly, the short of it is, I think this is a great company. I think it's a company that everyone should be considering when you're making any kind of investment, especially if you're at if you're a pro. It's kind of a no-brainer. And if you're a Sparky, if you're an electrician, and I'm lucky that a good friend of mine, my next door shop neighbor here, is a master electrician. I talk to him about this stuff all the time, and as he says, if it's mine, it's going to be Klein. But that's one specific trade, and they've been branching out. But I'm going to take you through it. We're going to talk about, what I saw at the factory, why they're moving, why this impacts American manufacturing. And this is a big conversation, and there's politics involved. And I'm not trying to make this into a left versus right thing. I personally don't trust anyone in government. So, but we're going to talk about it because it has to be part of the discussion because this is a big deal and it's affecting a lot of people. We're talking about reshoring and bringing manufacturing and making, tools in the United States. And Klein, 169 years old, and it's a family-run company. That's a huge deal to me. All right. The fact that it's not some big corporation, there's not, they're not trying to meet quarterly earnings. This is a family-run company. There is, somebody who's related to the founders still sitting at the table. That's important. All right. But that said, let's get into it. Let me show you the tools being made and the factory. This is down in Mansfield, Texas, just south of Dallas-Fort Worth. So let's head on down there and take a look at what I'm talking about. So I get down to Mansfield and, we meet up at the factory. And first they take us into a boardroom. And it's an impressive boardroom. It's like something out of a movie. It's got like the 20-foot long, and I'm maybe 15. I might be exaggerating a bit, but super long conference table, projector screen at one end, clearly the chairman's chair at the other. Beautiful table. Now I will say this, they made it out of glass. All right, or some other clear, it's like this thick. They have to bring out leather pads to put on the table before they can show you the tools. That's hilarious. Met some really wonderful people there. Some people who were truly knowledgeable. They also brought out at lunch, they brought in a whole team of engineers, the guys who designed the tools, the guy who designed this. And if you don't know, this is their uber famous ratcheting ball screwdriver that came out not too long ago. And got to meet him. This guy is freaking genius. He's done so many different things. Just really smart people there. At the beginning of the day, they took us out, and there was basically, I think it was 3 or 4 sections of the factory. As they took us through the factory, they stopped at all the different stations where the different tools are being made. And they let us have a chance to talk to the person who's actually there making the tools. Now, this wasn't just somebody they brought in who's a spokesperson for that department. This is the person who runs that equipment and does this job daily.
A lot of people don't do that, and we make sure that it's staying in that ring gauge. By their employees. So,
for 3 seconds, with 10,000 volts.
And it was really refreshing to get that level of access and be able to sit there and talk. And they did a little demonstration for us, and then they let us meander around and take photos of all the equipment. There were a few things they're like, don't take a picture of this piece of equipment, don't take a picture of this piece of equipment. I get it, everyone's got their secrets, all right? It's the tool industry, everyone copies everyone else, I understand. But they really did give us real full access on this kind of stuff. And then from there, we went into the second shop, which is really where like the forging and stuff. And I'm talking true, like gouts of flame fire forging. And it's interesting, you see this big wall of fire, and what they're doing there is they are preventing oxygen from getting into the chamber while they're doing the forging process. That fire itself, it creates an oxygen barrier wall so they can move tools in and out. Interesting, real, talk about a hothouse, all right? And there were guys there in sweatshirts in Texas. These guys are used to the heat. I'm from Montana, not so much. But just a great time talking to people, understanding the process and everything. And then from there, they moved us into the third unit. Actually went back to the other one, went into the third unit, which is more packaging, how the packaging gets made, how things get put in that. You guys, I'm talking to Klein here. I know everyone does it, but those bubble packs that you have to fight to get out, which you know what I love is I love buying a pocket knife in a bubble pack that needs a pocket knife to get it out. There's got to be a better way. Find a better way. I know I'm complaining, and everyone does it, but no one likes it. No one on our end, none of us like it. Okay, and I'll talk about these tools here in a minute. Okay, and then from there they took us through the shipping area where the stuff comes in, and they go through the whole logistics and how it gets put on the trucks and stuff. And also a lot of the stuff that is not made in the U.S., but it gets manufactured overseas. I believe it was overseas. Not manufactured in the U.S., comes into there and then gets packaged and sent out to the different retailers. And they all have their different rules and lots of cool technology. There were like these cool jumbo slides that'd be fun to go down. And they have this octopus thing that like wraps a pallet, scans it, takes pictures of it, does a 3D model of it so they can go, this is what it looked like when it went out the door. If it arrives to you differently, it wasn't on us, it's on the carrier. Now, we did all that, came back, and the person that I was dealing with, and she's a wonderful gal, and really just whip smart, knows exactly everything that's going on in the process in the tools that she's working with. But she turned to me and she goes, what was the most impressive thing to you? What of all the tools and everything you saw in the system, what impressed you the most? And I had an answer I don't think she was expecting, because my answer was the people. The people at Klein, I feel they think their jobs are important, and they are. But these are people who, they don't just like what they do, they care about what they do. Every single person I met on the floor who was working at Klein and the factory, we're not talking about out front in the office, we're not talking about any of the reps, we're talking about the people who clock in a time clock and do the work every single day. Every single one of them was wearing a variation on a Klein family t-shirt. Talking about the tools, where it's made, they have probably like half a dozen different styles of shirts, but they're all wearing a shirt that says Klein on it. Now, my first thought is maybe they're required to wear it. It's all part of like company cheer kind of thing where you got to wear your Klein shirts today. We got people coming. And I asked people surreptitiously, I'm like, they make you wear that shirt? They're like, they looked at me like I was an alien. They're like, no, I just like repping the brand. Every single person. wore a shirt, not required to rep the brand of the company they work at. I worked in a lot of companies. I rarely would wear the shirt of the brand of the company I worked at if I was not required to wear that as a uniform. That says a lot to me. The people that I talked to, the way they cared about the process and how the tools was made, and shut up, phone, the way they cared about all that, that was impressive. The whole thing about Klein, to me, is more than just the tools. And trust me, the tools are top notch. All right? I really enjoyed watching the woman putting these in the tester where they take this and dunk it in water. They're like held by the magnetic tip. I'll show you the video. And they dunk it down into the water and they run 10,000 volts through it. And to see if any of them spark. You'd be shocked about any failures. I'm a dad. I got to do the dad jokes. And just every single person proud of their job. And I just warms my heart to see that. This is real American manufacturing. This is not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they don't have automation. And I'm not saying there aren't robots involved, because there clearly are. But I've seen a lot of the other animation, and I've called out a lot of the other companies for calling themselves made in the US and it's assembled in the US. This felt like real manufacturing, modern manufacturing in the US with Americans involved in every step of the process. Everything down to like the laser engraving, like the laser on this stuff is, let me get my hand behind there. You can see this. This is, and it's, some of the guys thought this had to be a different kind of application because this is, you can feel this. Like I can get my fingernail in there. That is deep. And I asked them like what kind of lasers they're doing. And they're like, oh, we can't tell, it's proprietary. I can tell you, I know something about lasers. This is a high-end fiber laser. Nothing digs into metal like a fiber laser will. And this thing, this is deep in there for what they did. And it's a beautiful tool. And yes, they also, there it is, Den Tools. It's cool. Let's talk about Texas and why Klein is in Texas, because it's a 169-year-old company that everyone who thinks of Klein back in the day knows they're from Illinois. Why'd they leave Illinois for Texas? Unfortunately, American manufacturing, people ask, why isn't it happening more? And it's not one answer. Okay? There's a ton of them. When you're doing stuff like this, first answer, EPA. EPA and federal regulations. Because you're doing stuff that's hot, there's gas, there's nasty stuff going on. It's hard to comply with all those regulations. It's not easy, all right? And, then there's local, not in my backyard, the NIMBYs. They're like, I want to see American manufacturing, but I don't want a factory near me. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to see it and everything else. I'll be honest, when we drove up, I was wondering if I was in the wrong place because it didn't look like a factory. It looked like a warehouse, all right? There wasn't smoke billowing out. There wasn't giant chimneys and stuff like that. I was surprised to see it, but there it was, and they were actually making the tools right there on site. Now, they still do have facilities and stuff in Illinois. They're not completely out. And they didn't say that they were completely planning on moving, but every impression I got was that they are. And they've already moved, I think, most of the top-level staff and most of the manufacturing, and definitely the shipping regime. They're getting out of Dodge, and I think you can understand why. It's the local regulations, the state and city regulation stuff in Illinois they're bad, all right? And this is speaking to somebody who had, back in the day, had family in the Quad Cities. I grew up in Iowa. I live in Montana these days. My wife and her family are from Montana. Grew up in Iowa and Nebraska. I had family in the Quad Cities in Moline and Rock Island. It's, John Deere, John Deere through and through back, nothing runs like a deer. And, the Quad Cities were home for manufacturing, and there's a lot of places in Illinois that were. A lot of companies out of Illinois, and almost all of them have moved at this point because of state regulatory practices and how hard it is and all the other stuff. Now, I'm going to say one of the other things, and I did not ask this. I did not ask if Klein is a union shop. I don't know. But I will say this, because I've talked to people trying to bring back manufacturing to the U.S., and unions are a problem as well. And I know a lot of union guys are going to be pissed that I say it, but unions are anti-manufacturing. They will push and push and push until a company can't be profitable, and sometimes companies shut down, or sometimes companies just won't build in the U.S. because it's going to cost them too much. And you can also say the other half, it's on the American buyer, because the American buyer doesn't want to spend $50 for a pair of pliers. We can talk about Snap-on and what they did with the Malco Eagle grips. They were the biggest buyer, and there can be some say about back and forth about what put Malco Eagle grips out of business in DeWitt, Nebraska. They brought back manufacturing to DeWitt. They tried to make a go of it. They made the best locking pliers I've seen in my lifetime, and they went bust. And then Snap-on comes in, buys up all their manufacturing, ships it to one of their plants, does an add-on, and suddenly they're selling the same thing at double, triple the price. I'll try. Maybe I should, if you guys put enough comments below, maybe I'll do some investigative reporting, and maybe we can do an autopsy on what happened to Malco Eagle Grip. But I can tell you this right now, Klein is doing it the best they can. But let's talk about the tools and U.S. versus offshore and what's going on. Because I've made comments before that it felt to me that Klein was moving more and more of their stuff offshore. And I don't know if it's true that they're moving more so much as the newer stuff is offshore. So let's take a look at it. We'll look down here on the desk. And I got a bunch of the stuff. Some stuff I bought, some stuff that Klein gave me. This, of course, is something Klein gave me. These are stuff that Klein gave me. This is one I think I had. They shipped me this. This is new. I bought that one. They sent me these. I bought that. This they gave me on the manufacturing floor. It's I guess it's one of the, something like this before they actually put the item into it. It was literally hot off the press. And she comes over, she's like, here, take one. It's cool. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but it's cool to see, before they slot the bit in there, how they do it. And of course we did get to see how they make the bits, and that was a pretty cool process in and of itself. But, let's go back to the tools. So, most of these are, I don't know if I can say that most of them are made in the U.S. A lot of them are made in the U.S. Of course, pliers are one of the ones they're most famous for. In fact, the lineman pliers are often referred to sometimes, people call, all copiers the Xerox, all tissue papers, Kleenex. There are people who just call these Kleins, pass me the Kleins. And these are, as it proudly says, made in the USA there. It's hard to see with the glare, but, as I often say, they really do go out of their way to tell you when something is American made. But, this tool is, let me go through here. This one is, I don't believe that's made in the USA. These, I believe, are made in Taiwan or Japan. I don't believe the ball grip ones are made in the U.S. at all. They have, so this is the two versions. I should talk about this. All right, and this is a great tool, and it took the industry by a storm. And I gave one to my neighbor, the electrician, and he told me, after using it for several weeks, that this is his new favorite all-time screwdriver, that he uses it for everything. He said, the only thing I don't like about it is I go to put it in my bag. Your bag's got all those little loops in it, and when it goes in the loop, it hits the release, and the release is just too easy, and the bit always falls out. He's like, every time I go to get it, pull it out of my bag, I have to dig out the bit and put it back in there. That's a problem. So they came out with version 1.2, and it's essentially the same thing, same good ratcheting and whatnot, but it's a little tougher to move this. It's not, for finger strength, it's super easy, but if you stuff it in a bag, the loops and that kind of stuff, that's not going to release it, so you're not going to have that problem having to fish that out. And this is now his favorite screwdriver. It's one of my favorite screwdrivers. In fact, there's other electric screwdrivers I have that are possibly made by the same company. We're not for sure on that. There's a lot of questions about that, but I rarely pull out the electric ones when this is just as fast and easy, and it's always charged. All right. Now this is a non-ratcheting version, but it's pretty cool. This has a little feature where this pops out and you have all your bits in it. But it's not just that. This is actually a stubby, because now you can take this, take the bit, put it right in there, and now you've got a stubby screwdriver as well as your regular screwdriver. And then you can take that bit out. If you can, the magnet's really strong on that. And pop it in there. And it holds, you got 6 bits in there, nice little revolver action. That, of course, slots back in there. And now you have a traditional ball grip. It doesn't ratchet. It would be nice if they had the ratchet built in, but it is what it is. Then we've got, you know, a lot of different versions of the traditional Klein screwdriver. This is actually one of my favorites as well. I use that one a lot. Now, this is another one with impact-rated bits. All right. Then, of course, this is great for, I think, like a home DIYer. Because what you got here is you've got an insulated, sorry, it's a push on this one. You have insulated bits on an insulated screwdriver, and you have most of your extra, you know, your other bits right here. So that's kind of a whole toolbox all in one. And of course, I've talked about the X-Acto knife. If you haven't seen this, like, not X-Acto knife, the utility knife, but it locks at that position. It locks at that position. Quick deploy on it. Very nice. It's got another little, it's not the easiest thing to get out. You know, you got extra blades right in there, so you have easy access to those. But then it also has, on the reverse side, you open that up, push that wheel, and now you've got your little widget style for scraper there. And then you open that up, and it's gone. So you have all of that in one. Fantastic. And they got this one, which is the Axis style, which, you know, if you've been around the channel, I'm kind of a fan of the Axis style lock. And, you know, you pull that back, flip it open, and then you got your nice, this is what they call it, I think it's a sheep's head blade. And this is a great little one. And, you know, it has like, I think it's, I don't know if Milwaukee was the first one to do that or what, but it's got the little bit driver on it as well. And it's got a little lock on it, so you can put it in, like I can use it in a right angle. I can use it straight. This is, I honestly find myself using this a lot more than I thought. Honestly, I thought I just used the you know, utility blade all the time, but for cutting through tough stuff and whatnot, that sheep's head, it's got all the blade, and it's got a bottle opener, which I never use because I don't drink anything out of a bottle. This one, this is junk. I hate this one. I've worked it a bunch, so now I can actually flip it open. When I first got it, it wouldn't move at all, but it's not comfortable in the hand. It's entirely black, which means if I throw it into a bag, I'm never going to, let me bring it down here. If I throw it into a bag, I'm never going to see it again. It doesn't feel ergonomic. The liner lock is, oh my gosh, that is stiff. And I've had hundreds of knives. This is probably one of my top 5 worst knives. I'm sorry. I hate that thing. This one has no bit, so that's not useful. The other tools. So, I mean, as far as a stud finder, I never have luck with stud finders. As soon as I pick them up and put a battery in it, they just start beeping. I don't know why. Ask my wife. She'd probably tell you. But anyway, this is one of the things not made in the USA. My USB power tester. I bought this for a video I was doing. We're testing USB chargers and stuff. It's all right. The display is ridiculously small. It's super hard to read. It's not my favorite tool. And there's been a lot of this stuff. And this is not made in the USA. I got the borescope that they sell, the endoscope, but it's the one that Bluetooths or Wi-Fi's to your phone, and it's a pain in the butt. And it sits in the bottom of my toolbox at my other shop, and I haven't used it in years. And this is a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing that's not made in the USA. And that comes to, like, when you're making anything as electronics, it's harder to do. It's more complicated circuit boards. This is what's not being made in the USA. Some of the newer stuff is being, OEM sourced through manufacturers who do this more often, but at least they're doing it from countries that we're friendly with, we have good ties with, and that I don't feel terribly bad about working with. But most of the other stuff, like the stuff that matters, that still, most of the tools made in the USA. Again, some of it not made in the USA, but again, coming from countries where it's not really a big deal for me. So I will say this. They try to make what they can in the USA. And one of the things, we actually had a discussion about this, was they had a bit that they did. They were making bits, USA made bits, super high quality, but the cost, they couldn't sell them. No one would buy them. They stopped making them because that's what it costs to make them in the US. And people were like, I'm not going to pay that kind of money. So let me know, how important is made in the USA to you? And are you willing to pay more? And if so, how much more? For me, it's always been, I'm willing to pay more, but I'm not willing to pay what I feel like to be like a ransom note. Like, buy this tool or else American jobs go away and we're going to charge you $100 for what I feel is a $35 tool. Maybe $50 made in the USA. You know, if you're a professional, it's easier to justify. If you're the home gamer who just does it a lot, you're really enthusiastic, you do a lot of work with it, you want better tools, but it's still hard to justify that when you have, you know, made in Japan, made in Taiwan, made in Europe tools that are not costing $100 for a hand tool. All right. So that's where we have to go with that. All right. And now we're going to pull back the curtain for the full transparency. So Klein offered to fly me down. And I hate airports. Planes, I don't mind. Airports, I hate dealing with people at the airport. Just drives me up a wall. And I'm like, I haven't driven down to Texas. I haven't been deep into the heart of Texas. I've only been through the Panhandle a couple times, maybe like a handful of times. And I'm like, how about this? How about you pay for my gas and I'll drive down? They're like, sure, we'll give you a gas card payment and we'll put you up in a hotel room. And they did. And it wasn't just for one night. It was like for 3 or 4 nights. I don't remember. And it wasn't a super high-end hotel. It was like, I think it was like the equivalent of a Holiday Inn Express, right? It was decent. It was a decent little hotel. You know, it was a place to lay your head and it was clean and whatnot. My daughter drove down with me, so I'm going to stay someplace safe and stuff. Monday night, the things weren't starting until Tuesday night because we got in early because I had to do deals of the week and all this stuff. So they're like, hey, we got a vice president who wants to meet you, but he's leaving for some event, so he's not going to be here for the tour. Would it be possible to do dinner? So they took me out and my daughter Monday night, really nice steak restaurant. And I think I actually ended up getting the jambalaya instead of the steak. I live in Montana. I eat a lot of steak. My daughter got the lobster and macaroni. She said it was fabulous. But great people, great restaurant. I wish I could remember the name of it. But then the next day I got to meet, several of the YouTubers, and I'll put their names on screen and everything. Fabulous people and really, really super nice. And they took us all out to dinner. My daughter stayed back at the hotel this time. Again, took us out to a steak dinner, had a great time, and really, really nice place. Then they offered they were going to go and do like a cigar bar or something. I don't smoke, I don't drink, so I went back to the hotel room. And then the next day we did the tour, and then we took off, and that was the total of it. They did send us home with a bag, it was a Klein bag, a bunch of shirts. Oh, I can't forget, I got I should swap out. Got my Klein hat, and the bag's over there. Anyway, tool bag, and actually I ended up giving a lot of the stuff that they gave us away to local tradesmen that I know. I know several electricians and other people in related trades. So I tried to give these tools away to people who are going to use them long term, so I can get long term feedback on like, hey, it's great to pick it up and use it for a little job around my studio, but I'm 57. I'm not working in the trades anymore, doing any of that stuff. So, let's give it to somebody out there who's younger, who's, doing it every day, and let them beat it up, let them, have their say in it as well. So we'll get some long-term feedback on that. But again, as I said, I've heard from most of these guys, and they absolutely love Klein Tools. They're huge Klein fanboys. Klein has been a supporter of the electrical trades, Sparkies as we like to call them, electricians and stuff. But we're seeing more and more people, and they're getting outside that. Again, the stud finders and all the other tools and stuff like that. They're getting in, supporting the HVAC and the other miscellaneous trades. I think they even saw some plumbing stuff. I think we saw some pipe wrenches and whatnot. So there's a lot more of that out there, and I love to see it. I'm trying not to come across as a fan bear on this, but I kind of am, because they're doing exactly what we've been preaching and asking for on the channel. We want real American manufacturing with actual Americans, where they're not just sitting there, brain dead pressing the button. All right, I've seen jobs, manufacturing jobs, where it is somebody standing there half asleep on their feet, pressing the button once every 5 minutes. And that's all they do. And this is not that. All right. I'm not saying there aren't positions in there where they're doing something like that, but the manufacturing isn't that. This is hands-on. People know what's going on. They are involved and integral to the process. And, that's why I get excited about it. And I'm still excited months after it. I still think about that trip. And I've turned down a lot of trips. Hart offered me a trip. They went away. DeWalt offered me a trip. Ryobi offered me a trip. There's a lot of companies that have offered me trips, and I usually turn them down. Because I'm like, you want to send me a tool, we'll evaluate the tool. But I'm not trying to get wined and dined and all that stuff. And getting taken out for a steak dinner is fine, but I can buy my own steak dinners. One of the fun facts, they're like, oh, you got to go to Fort Worth, because I had some free time during the day, all the extra time down there. You got to go to Fort Worth and check out the downtown, because it's very like Old West, and there's cattle and all this other kind of stuff. And they're like, if you've never seen, you got to see it, because really cool, like real like Western kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm from Montana, right? But it was cool. You do, if you haven't been around it. We did drive through. I took the daughter down there. She got to see it. She really wanted to see a Texas Longhorn. We got to see a Texas Longhorn. I've always liked Texas Longhorns, so it was a cool trip, and it was a great time. And I met a lot of great people. And what the real takeaway from this should be for you is, I hope that Klein is something that you're going to consider. I'm not going to sit here and ever tell you have to buy this, or you're a moron for not buying this. All right. The mod boxes, I think they're fantastic. I think if you're a pro, you should be considering mod box. My buddy who's the electrician said, if I was starting right now, I would be buying mod box. He's got trucks, because he owns a fleet of trucks, people, and they're all pack out. So he's like, I'm not going to switch. They're cool, but they're not good enough to make me switch. But if I was starting over, that's the way I would go. And these things are big. I've done videos on them, stuff like that. I love the mod boxes. If you are a prosumer, I think they're overkill. I think they're expensive. They're great. But it's like, you don't, if you're just running to the grocery store and back, you don't need a Ram 3500 with a Cummins diesel. All right? Trust me, I have one. You don't need it just to go to the grocery store and back. So, great tools. All right? This tool, I love this tool, but there's other tools. This one, not a great tool. This, I think, is a great tool for the homeowner. It does not, to me, feel, and maybe I'm wrong. The spinny part here feels a little plasticky. It feels like if I was a professional, I'd want dedicated tools. I'd want a whole bunch of different ones. But, there's different levels of being professional. There's guys who are like, I just go out and do odd jobs. So I'm going to carry a small pack, so I need more of a multi-tool kind of solution rather than carrying 16 different insulated screwdrivers, because I'm doing panel replacements daily. There's different levels of professional. A lot of people have a hard time remembering that. I don't think it's a perfect company, but I think they're trying harder than pretty much any other company out there that's trying to do American made right. And I challenge you to prove me wrong. Put it down in the comments. We'll have a discussion about it. If I'm wrong, I will be the first to say it. But this is the first company that I've talked to, and I really walked away going, yeah, they're really walking the walk. So A+ to Klein. Hope you decide to take a look at them. I'll put links to everything either on the screen or down below and whatnot. At least the stuff that we talked about here. And of course, we'll be covering more Klein stuff on the channel. If there's other companies like this that you want more of a deep dive in, let me know and I'll reach out to them, and maybe we can line something up and I'll do more of this kind of stuff. But I've said before that, like, hey, I'm not of the sort that's going to tell you, you have to buy American. But if you can, this is a good company I think you should support. I won't say any more on it. If you like what we did, go ahead and chomp the old like button, smash the subscribe, ring the bell on the way out. You all take care, God bless, and as always, shine on.